India is located in southern Asia and has a landmass approximately one-third that of the United States. Originally, India had several cities named through British translations, but these have been changed to local dialects, such as the city of Bombay being renamed back to Mumbai. India's population consists of 1.18 billion people and currently considered as the second most largest country. 72% are of Indo-Aryan descent, 25% Dravidian, 25% Mongoloid, and 3% others. Of that population, 80% of the people are Hindus, 13.4% are Muslims, 2.3% are Christians, 1.9% are Sikh, 1.8% are others, and 0.1% unspecified. The official languages of India are English and Hindi, including 17 other regional languages. The Indian culture originated when the Aryan tribes from the northwest infiltrated into the Indian subcontinent around 1500 BC and had merged with the early Dravidian inhabitants. Arab incursions started in the 8th century and the Turkish in the 12th century, followed by European traders by the 15th century. By 19th century, Britain had assumed political control of virtually all Indian lands. Independence against British colonialism through nonviolent resistance by Mohandas Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru divided the subcontinent into the secular state of India and the small Muslim state of Pakistan. Another war in 1971 resulted in East Pakistan becoming the nation of Bangladesh. Immigrants from India come predominantly from urban areas, initially represented by students, government officials, and business people. Asian Indians came to America in two waves. The first wave came in early 20th century and continued to mid-1920s. During those times, racial discrimination and lack of access to economic advancement made it difficult for the first wave to sustain themselves or their culture. The second wave of immigrants started in 1965 and still continues today. The individuals from this wave are highly educated and skilled professionals who are predominantly from the urban middle class. It is reported by the American Community Survey that over 2.4 million Indian American populations currently reside in the United States. For many Asian Indians, immigration was seen as prestigious. Most left their country for professional, educational, and social opportunities. However, the most vital one was to attain higher standard of living.
A biblical worldview really focuses and believes that God is all powerful, all knowing, the creator of the world, who still rules the universe today. They believe in the Bible and that the Bible is trustworthy and accurate in all of its teaching, that God is infinite, personal, good, sovereign, omnipotent, immanent, and transcendent. Biblical worldview believes that absolute moral truth exists, that Jesus Christ lived a sinless life on earth, that people can know God and He is very relational, and people view death as a gateway to life with God. History is linear, leading to the fulfillment of God's purposes. And Satan is real. He's not just a symbol, and Christians have a responsibility to share their faith in Christ with other people. Whereas a Hindu worldview is unclear and timeless in origin. Practices with 300 million plus gods. They believe that the cosmos is by 100 of deities and that yoga is made for worship. They believe in a cycle of rebirth or reincarnation, the law of cause and effect, karma. They also have a circular human history and live by a caste system. One big similarity between the Hindu and Christian faith and biblical worldview is that they both believe that the universe had a beginning at some point in time and that it was created by some type of creator god, whether that be a lowercase g for the Hindus, along with the rest of their billions of gods, where the Christians believe in one God. The main difference, though, is that for the Hindu, they believe in a cycle of rebirth, and that is their ultimate goal in life, where the Christians' ultimate goal is to get to heaven.
So their traditional perception of health is they basically want to maintain harmony between self and supernatural world. Remember how we were talking about in class that they really believe in just like karma and rebirth and destruction and reincarnation. So they're going to maintain that harmony between self and supernatural world by pretty much believing that one can do little to restore health by oneself. Indians that experience mental distress biomedically and assign it to ill-defined medical conditions to a phenomenon called somatization. So they pretty much do that instead of admitting that they feel sad or depressed. Their dietary habits within Indian subcontinent are complex and regionally varied and strongly influenced by religion. So, for example, in modern India, vegetarianism is firmly rooted in culture, and the term non-vegetarian is used to describe anyone who eats meat, eggs, poultry, fish, and sometimes cheese. But in some parts of India, like northern India, many Brahmins consider eating meat to be religiously sanctioned, and eating fish is acceptable, where in other parts, eating meat of any source is sacrilegious. Hindus also believe that food was created by the Supreme Being for the benefit of humanity. And they also believe certain foods are hot and others are cold, so therefore should only be eaten during certain seasons and not in combination. So their customs and belief often affect what medical decisions and choice of healthcare they're going to be doing. So, and the reason for that is because supernatural forces and certain human excesses are considered important in causing illness. And this is pretty much everywhere. Despite having high-level education, Hindus, they're gonna believe that as well. So the whole point of the supernatural forces and certain human excesses, if they consume too much sweets, they may believe that it causes roundworms, and too much sexual activity and worry are associated with tuberculosis. But however, healthcare providers cannot really take that for granted, that all Hindus have the same belief system with that same degree of intensity. How will we be able to tell if they do believe this or if they are practicing this? Are they accepting the scientific cause for the disease, or are they having a difficult time with the treatment? They also believe, like we said in class, they believe in karma, and whatever happens to them as far as health-wise is pretty much God's will for them. It's like God's wrath. Their pain is attributed to God's will, and they may think of it as punishment from God, and is to be born with courage. That's another reason and another barrier to healthcare and illness. And they really try to find meaning in their pain and prefer herbal remedies. And there is a stigma attached to seeking professional psychiatric help, and many Hindus do not access the healthcare system for mental health problems, and it's just pretty much considered God's will and past karma is how they think of it. The sick role is pretty much assumed without any feeling of guilt or ineptness in doing one's tasks. So basically the family, in Hindu culture, a lot of the families are strong and they have really good kinship ties. So the sick role is really well accepted, and basically the individual is cared for and relieved of responsibilities for that time. And because of this, Hindus are not likely to use long-term care facilities. They basically believe in worshiping goddesses, pilgrimage to holy places, and pouring water at the roots of sacred trees is believed to have some medicinal effects for healing the sick person. And they're also going to pretty much most of the time self-medicate, and this is because the pharmacies in India generally allow the purchase of medications such as antibiotics without a prescription. So a lot of these Hindus that are migrating to America are pretty much accustomed to this self-medication and may bring medications with them. They believe in traditional healers, and these traditional healers are like using herbs and roots, and then some mainly use medicines. And these healing methods that I have here listed are all based on a Tridosha theory, which is a theory that the body is made up of a modification of the five elements, which is air, space, fire, water, and earth. And these modifications are formed from food and must be maintained within proper proportions for health. They're going to consult their relatives and friends first rather than healthcare providers. And if they do consult healthcare providers, the family members are generally going to be want to be involved in their treatment and may request information. So that might be a problem as far as like HIPAA and privacy. Hindu women are especially modest, so they're generally going to seek female healthcare providers for things such as like gynecological exams, and due to the fact that any open display of affection is taboo in Hindu culture, as healthcare providers, we need to respect their modesty and provide adequate privacy and assigning same gender caregivers whenever possible. They may not openly question their physician's behavior or treatment, and pretty much if they're not pleased with the treatment, they'll just change providers. They won't really express their dissatisfaction. They are really appreciative of the information that physicians provide about their illness. They also accept the physician to teach him or her about the disease and how to get cured in a friend-to-friend relationship. That goes back to the seeking the relatives and friends first. And also the physician is seen as a leader, and other medical personnel take on lower status, so nurses and stuff like that. And the physician is viewed as an older person who is protective, authoritative, and in a teacher-discipline relationship.
There are various nursing implications a nurse can utilize to provide culturally sensitive care, such as assessing their knowledge of their illness. Some Hindu people believe that excessive consumption of sweets may cause roundworms and that too much sexual activity may be associated with tuberculosis. Possible intervention is to notify the provider if the patient is unaware of their disease process. Nurse can also assess what is the patient's current medication regimen. Pharmacies in India allow purchase of medications with a physician prescription. An intervention is reviewing with the patient their medications, including herbal holistic regimens. They can also assess if the patient has any food rituals that could interfere with their medications, notifying the patient which foods to abstain from consuming with under a specific medication. Assessing if the patient has any specific requests, such as during a delivery, only the nurse and female obstetrician can be present during the time of delivery. An intervention is accommodating the patient's request to receive care from a specific gender. Assessing their knowledge of testing procedures, their mammograms may be prolonged because of modesty in their culture. An intervention is explaining the general purpose of a scanning procedure to give them more comfort during the procedure. There are various goals that a nurse can provide for the Hindu culture, such as a nurse, Sally, will ask her patient if there is a special diet she follows upon admission, allowing the physician to know which diet ordered to respect the patient's wishes. Nurse Sally will ask her patient who is the primary decision maker for her. Sometimes a female Hindu patient has her husband that makes the decisions for her. Nurse Sally will assess home medications upon request during admission. If the patient doesn't have their medications on hand, they can get in contact with someone that has their medications before the physician actually sees the patient. Lastly, Nurse Sally will assess her patient's pain through nonverbal cues during her shift. Pain is received through the wrath of God, is viewed sometimes through the Hindu culture, so they may not verbally explain that they have pain, but you can assess their verbal cues if they do have pain to provide medications for their pain.